This is about the quarterback. They're not good enough to overcome losing the turnover battle. They're not good enough to overcome the 7 penalties. They're not good enough to overcome a quarterback only throwing for 116 yards. It's not good enough as a football team in other areas to overcome doing the little things incorrectly. The New York Jets saw their winning streak snapped, but they didn't completely embarrass themselves on Thursday Night Football, and that might be just enough. Aaron Judge won himself another MVP, and it is Jameis Winston season for the New York Giants. Let's get weird. Another edition of the NY Sports Index. That is Jamie Eisner. I am Chris Schubert, talking all things New York sports. Jamie, we've got a nice menu today here on the podcast on a Friday.
We do, and I guess we should probably just get right into it. This is, I think, our first in a while since the Giants and Eagles played on Thursday Night Football. This is our first Friday show where we have a game to recap, and the Jets, well, they started well, and and that's about all of the nice things I can say about the Jets' performance on Thursday Night Football as they fall to the New England Patriots. I guess they kept the game in doubt for a while, but it was not an easy watch, Chris. That was not an easy game to sit back and watch last night.
No, and, they're somehow only down 14-7 at halftime. They get to stop defensively to start the second half, and for a brief second there, you're trying to convince yourself that they're going on a drive to tie the game and make this a competitive affair, and they're showing that they're better than their record indicates, right? And it just completely falls on its face because, once again, we're talking about an offense that is just completely inept, and it's because of the guy under center making the decisions. And it's less about the results. I don't care that the Jets lost the football game to the New England Patriots. I don't even really care about the score. And I'm also kind of shocked at the way it's being framed, that the defense got crushed and they got decimated and dominated. It wasn't really that. Their offense had multiple chances in this game to keep it competitive. Yeah, the defense gave up touchdowns on the first 2 drives, but after that, I thought they were fine. I thought they were a good enough defense, considering they traded away their 2 best players 10 days ago. I thought they were really good in the face of all of that, to be honest with you, considering the injuries that they also suffered throughout the game. But this is about the quarterback, and it's also about a team, Jamie, that's not good enough to not be anything but perfect. They're not good enough to overcome losing the turnover battle. They're not good enough to overcome the 7 penalties. They're not good enough to overcome a quarterback only throwing for 116 yards. They're just not good enough as a football team in other areas to overcome doing the little things incorrectly. And you have a quarterback who I can't watch on 3rd and medium, 3rd and long throw a check down and not even attempt to throw it at the sticks. I can't watch a quarterback miss open routes to A.D. Mitchell on 2 specific plays where it's a first down and it's a big, huge chunk play if he makes the throw in stride to A.D. Mitchell. I can't watch a quarterback take — it wasn't an ugly snap, it wasn't a great snap, but it was a so-so snap, and then just unable to fall on the ball and turn it over. You're doing the rest of the team a disservice. If Tyrod Taylor's in the game, do the Jets win? No, but you're in evaluation mode right now. You traded for A.D. Mitchell, you got to see what you got there. You traded for John Metchie, you got to see what you got there. You're trying to develop a tight end in Mason Taylor, right, who has looked good so far in his rookie season. You're trying to, as a new regime, figure out, hey, we going to give Breece Hall a long-term contract extension? Are we going to give him the transition tag, or are we just going to move on from him? You're trying to evaluate all of this. You're trying to figure out, hey, is Joe Tippmann going to be our long-term answer at right guard? How do we feel about these 2 tackles? You're trying to do all of that in service of a bigger picture of building a better version of this offense in 2026. And you can't have this guy under center playing quarterback. It's just that simple. Like, Tyrod Taylor maybe gives you a better chance to win. That's not even the reason why I would do it. He gives you a better chance to truthfully evaluate where this roster is.
Yeah, I mean, they mentioned on the broadcast a few different times, almost in that same level of exasperation as I just displayed there, about Justin Fields' inability to rack up passing yards. I mean, I don't know if I took a shot every time they talked about the games he had under 60 passing yards, I wouldn't have made it through to the 4th quarter. He had a couple plays here and there. He had he ends up getting over 100 yards in total, but it was just, I watched a lot of Justin Fields. I watched a lot of him here in Chicago. I watched him at the start of the season, or at times in the season with Pittsburgh. I just don't think it's going to get better. internal clock that he has in his head is just not developing, and you can argue it's regressing. It just looks like the game is moving too quick for him. And yes, I understand that the Jets, especially without Garrett Wilson, don't have a lot of great weapons for him to go to. They don't have a lot of separation from their receivers. And a couple times where he did make some nice throws, you have a case down the sideline where A.D. Mitchell drops it, who's already somehow wore out his welcome with Jets fans.
Which I want to talk about
very quickly.
Yeah, I want to talk about that today too.
So yeah, but to your point, Chris, you got to try something else. You got to try a different quarterback here going forward, because not that you're going to win many more games, not that you're going to win next week with Tyrod Taylor, but it's just untenable at this point. Between the sacks that he would take at times, between him taking off and running when he shouldn't, not taking off and running when he should, not being able to really complete a pass downfield, like it's just getting to be. Not only is it bad football, but it's tough football to watch. Like, they're not even exciting losers right now. And look, I think at this point, anybody that's still making excuses for Justin Fields has just got to just take it on the chin at this point and be like, you were wrong. I thought he would have a better career than he's had. I know we talked about in the preseason that we thought maybe he'd be able to work well within this run-heavy offense and see what Inkstran had for him. It's just fool's gold. I know you had the great opening drive, but it's also saw a stat that this is actually the best era for opening drive scoring in NFL history. So it's a thing that a lot of teams are doing well, but the second that you get outside of that game script to start the game, it's just unbearable. And Chris, I'm with you. I don't know. We talked a little bit on the pre-show about, when's Brady Cook going to get a shot? When is Tyrod Taylor going to get a shot? I mean, at this point, the Jets aren't real. I mean, the players and the coaches are trying to win games, but long-term, you're trying to evaluate the pieces on the roster, and you can't have a quarterback that's just can't get the ball to anybody. Like, and I understand there were a couple drops. I understand things could have gone a little bit differently, but I'm not even sure Justin Fields is the quarterback you want out there when you're trying to evaluate the rest of the talent on this offense.
No, and to your point about the coaching and the players still trying to win, Aaron Glenn hasn't done himself any favors at the podium this year, and he's certainly not going to continue to do himself any favors if he tries to say that he's doing everything in his power to win, and he continues to trot out Justin Fields as a starter. Look, it made sense that he started the game in Cincinnati because Tyrod Taylor was hurt. It made sense coming out of that game into a bye week with the way the offense performed that he got a chance against Cleveland. It was reasonable that even though it didn't look great, they won the game against Cleveland, so you continue to try to build that positive momentum. And you're right back to where you were before this 2-game winning streak of we have an offense that can't move. And, my big reason for thinking that Fields could have a successful year this year in New York, and I think we took the over on almost all of his numbers in the preseason on the program, is that I thought this was going to be the best coaching staff around him, that it was going to be the best group of coaches to put him in a position to succeed. And I still stand by that. I think Tanner Engstrand is drawing up a lot of plays where guys are open. Now, he's got to hit A.D. Mitchell on those two passes. A.D. Mitchell has to catch the other two passes, right? But A.D. Mitchell provided separation in that game on Thursday that I don't even think Garrett Wilson provides for the New York Jets. Like, he was open all the time. Mason Taylor was open on a huge play for a touchdown that's making its rounds on social media, and Fields just didn't throw the ball. And so I don't, this is not an offensive play calling issue. This is an execution issue. The plays are there. They're scheming things open. They're making the right decision. And the reason why I know this is, yeah, your point about opening drive touchdowns being on the up, but that opening script was perfect.
Yeah.
And when it was executed perfectly, look what happened. And it all comes back to the Jets just need everything to go their way if they're going to do anything on offense. And you can kind of squint and look at the game and convince yourself that if Tyrod Taylor's in there, that game's competitive in the fourth quarter and they actually have a chance to pull off the upset on the road as 12.5 point, 13.5 point underdogs, right? You can squint and convince yourself of that. Now, I do want to talk about A.D. Mitchell because he's getting a lot of heat on social media. Yeah. And he's getting a lot of heat for a player that was a throw-in in a trade, like wasn't the centerpiece of a trade, and he's getting the heat like he was the centerpiece of a trade, which is weird to me. He got the most targets on the team. I don't think that was by accident. He led the team in targets with 6. That's because the Jets want to evaluate what this guy is. And if you want to talk about the drops, that's fair. But the reason why he dropped that one pass is because he beat Christian Gonzalez one-on-one on a stop and go and got
Yeah.
open enough. That's impressive. He was open all the time. One of the ones that Fields missed, they ran kind of a rub wheel route with Mitchell, and he was wide open, and Fields threw it behind him. So you're seeing somebody who, let me tell you what, Tyrod Taylor is going to continue to throw him the ball. If A.D. Mitchell
Yeah.
continues to get open, Tyrod Taylor is going to feed him. Tyrod Taylor is going to allow him to, yeah, he's got the drops, but he's going to continue to throw to him to build his confidence. And he's going to rip it into those tight windows when there's one-on-one coverage and Mitchell has a stride there. He's going to try to rip it in there. And yeah, you're going to get some interceptions, but you're also going to get a chance for A.D. Mitchell to get his confidence back. So I'm not as negative or sour on Mitchell's performance as the rest of because, he dropped a couple passes, so he's got to be cut today. He can't be on the roster anymore. He led the team in targets for a reason. You traded for him for a reason, and that's not to cut him after one game or be done with him after one game because he had a pair of drops. He also did a lot of good things that, let's face it, nobody else on this roster does, and there's a reason why he was drafted where he was in the first place. So I am full steam ahead. I still want him to get the majority of the targets in Garrett Wilson's absence. I still want him to be treated as the wide receiver one. And you know what? If you continue to treat him this way and he continues to drop passes, then you're going to know the answer very quickly. But you can't just immediately bail after one bad game, one bad performance where, oh, by the way, he's getting open and he's creating all this separation without a true full understanding of the offense.
And like you said a couple times, against one of the best, maybe one of the 5 best corners in football in Christian Gonzalez. So, yeah, I mean, look, I get it. There's A.D. Mitchell's gotten a lot of. He was a polarizing prospect during the draft process. He's been a polarizing player in Indianapolis, and obviously he's already become a polarizing player for Jets fans here just 2 games into the season. But he's been with the team for what, 2 weeks, like 13 days, 14 days. Like, I mean, it hasn't really been that long. Yes, the drops are an issue, but the Jets don't have people that create separation and get open. And that's something that Mitchell is doing. Now, I get that it falls on deaf ears if you also then drop the pass, but I'm still bullish on on at least looking at what the potential can be here over the rest of the season and seeing if he can be a piece for you. You're not expecting him to be your long-term wide receiver one. You're not even necessarily expecting him to be your long-term wide receiver two, but can he be a complementary piece to your offense long-term with Garrett Wilson, and then assuming you add another receiver somewhere in the draft, free agency or whatnot as you start to rebuild this offense. But yeah, I mean, look, when things happen in prime time, and we've talked about this a lot, everything gets amplified. And those 2 drops are bad, but if those 2 drops happen at 1 p.m. Eastern on CBS, it's a different conversation going on than they are when it's the standalone game on Thursday Night Football. But again, to me, if you ask me, I don't really have, my opinion on A.D. Mitchell has not changed since the trade. Still think it's a worthwhile dart throw. Still think he is going. I'm actually been. I was in some ways. I was encouraged by some of the things that happened in this game. I know the drops are what everyone wants to talk about, but if I want to take a 10,000-foot view, I was actually encouraged by the usage and his ability to get open overall in terms of what. So I get it, but to me, I think at this point, the Jets are what they are. This is a team that had stripped down of all of its assets, essentially, or not all of its assets, but most of its key assets. They are dealing with injuries that they have to account for. This is what you're going to see. Again, at this point, you're just evaluating your team. And at this point, really the only thing that really needs to change is probably the quarterback, just because you want to see what somebody that's going to attempt more passes downfield, going to attempt more passes in more situations can do in this offense to help you evaluate all other pieces. But it's just kind of what the Jets are right now. Like they're a bad football team, and they're going to be a bad football team the rest of the year. And they're going to be in this number 1 pick conversation, not because they're tanking on purpose, because they're just not good enough. And the pieces that they had that would make them go to a different level of talent are gone. So, or hurt in the case of Garrett Wilson. So it's kind of what you got.
One more thing, at least on my end from this game, because I do want to give credit where credit is due. I've been critical of Aaron Glenn at times here on this pod, especially when it comes to his his press conference shenanigans. And at the beginning of the year, I thought some of the coaching decisions were downright abysmal. He deserves all the credit in the world for making the right decision by winning the toss and taking the ball and going right down the field to score 7-0. That's going to get lost in this game because they lost the game by multiple scores. But you are a double-digit point dog on the road. holding out this hope that you're going to keep it competitive in the first half and give yourself a chance to get that opening drive in the second half is fool's gold. And more teams need to understand when they're on the road, when they're away from their own building and they're huge underdogs, take the ball and set the tempo, right? Set the narrative of the game early, and it worked. They went right down the field and they were up 7-0, and you feel really good about the way the game started. So it's not, I messaged you before they went on the touchdown drive and said, I give him an A+ for that decision, because there's a plenty of coaches that wouldn't make that decision, that they would just do the whole, oh, we have a better chance to win if we kick the ball and we take it in the second half. You're the New York freaking Jets, who are 2-7, and you don't have an offense that is able to keep you in games in the first half. You need to take the ball, take that opening script, give your team some enthusiasm, some positive momentum, some positive energy in the first half of a game like this. So again, it's going to get lost in the victory, but this is the part of the growth and development of a coaching staff that we're seeing, and it's a little thing that most people probably didn't think about in the moment, but I thought it was a very encouraging sign.
I agree.
You want to talk about your new AL MVP, or do you want to talk about your football team and its new starting quarterback? I'll let you pick which of your teams we talk about.
Let's finish up the football conversation before we talk about baseball a little bit.
I love the over in this game. Love the over in this game.
We want to talk about bad but not boring. That's what the Giants are going to be this week. Jameis Winston, whenever he starts, is a show, baby. It's a show because he's got enough talent to create crazy positive plays
for both teams,
crazy negative plays. So, no, this makes a lot of sense. I think Mike Kafka is kind of trying to put his stamp on this team a little bit. Russell Wilson has not played well, did not play well in relief of Jackson Dart in last week's game. I think a lot of people had kind of been calling for Jameis Winston to get an opportunity for a little bit now, and a lot of people were surprised that he wasn't somebody that either got traded in the preseason or traded to a team like Cincinnati before they got Joe Flacco. So I'm excited to see it. I mean, we still have a major talent issue with available players on this Giants offense, so it's not like it's going to be I don't think they're putting up 45 or anything like that, not without Neighbors, not without Scatterboo, not without this, but at least it's going to be exciting. And look, at this point, neither one of those two guys are obviously your long-term pieces. They're probably both not going to be there next year anyway. So you're really just kind of doing what you can if you're Mike Kafka, who you're not even sure if you're going to be there next year either, to just see if you can win some games here down the stretch. And to me, if I'm Darius Slayton, I'm really excited just to get some of those go balls down the field. I know he was a lot better with that this last week than he was 2 weeks ago. Rondo Robinson, the two tight ends. So we'll kind of see what this offense looks like. We saw who got what when Jackson Dart was starting. We saw who got what when Russell Wilson was starting. We'll see what Jameis Winston has in store for some of these guys. But it's exciting because it's different. It's exciting because it's going to be crazy one way or the other. Doesn't make them good. And you're going to be facing a Packers team that I think desperately needs a win in this game, considering the narratives that have followed that team around these last couple of weeks, coming off of a primetime loss. So
Matt LaFleur's coaching for his job here.
That's what I hear. I don't think he is.
No,
but
neither do I.
That's what the internet tells me. But yeah, it is. It's going to be interesting. I will say that. It's going to be a more enjoyable game to watch with Jameis Winston starting versus Russell Wilson, but I don't think it's going to have a different result in the end for the Giants.
Well, and this is one thing I thought about a little bit today when getting ready for the pod. Selfishly, if you're Mike Kafka, the best chance for you to give a good impression, to potentially be the long-term answer here at coach, is to start Jameis Winston, if not Jackson Dart, right? Like, starting Russell Wilson probably is not going to help you fluff up the resume for when the Giants potentially evaluate you as an answer for the head coach. So Winston, you might be able to put up some gaudy offensive numbers because you know he's going to take those big shots. Now, yeah, the supporting cast is diminished because of injury. Yeah, it's Jameis, so he's going to throw some pick sixes going the other direction. But in terms of showing potentially where the offense can go, yeah, you start Jameis because I think it gives you a better chance to be impressive. It's the more likely of the two quarterbacks to give you a chance to look good in your first start.
Yeah, I mean that's really all it is, right? I mean, like at the end of the day, that's really all it is.
Sure,
like,
but
it's just giving you the best impression.
But selfishly, it's important if you're Mike Kafka.
Yeah, of course it is. But it's also one of those things where, at the end of the day, I don't think it's going to change much.
No, I don't think he's the long-term answer at coach, but he doesn't think that, right? He thinks he's got every chance in the world, probably.
Well, one, he does. He has a chance. I mean, I wouldn't rule it out. He also has a chance to go somewhere else. And you not only is he coaching for his job, he's coaching for a job. And that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be a head coach, but if he's not the head coach in New York, there's a 99% chance he's not staying. Every once in a while, you'll see something weird like that, but more often than not, you won't. So now he also has to audition to be an offensive coordinator, potentially somewhere else.
Yeah, I felt 3 teams just popped in my head that could see their coordinators either get fired or go to head coaching gigs next year. He could go to Buffalo if Joe Brady takes a gig. He can go to Seattle if Clint Kubiak takes a gig. He can go to Arizona if Drew Petzing gets fired. 3 potential landing spots immediately off the top of my head.
Buffalo is the easy answer there, right? Wasn't he there before?
I believe he was, yes.
Yeah.
So that
feels like that's the easy answer if Joe Brady goes somewhere else.
But that's the other thing you're coaching for too, right? Is to impress teams like that who may have an opening.
Yeah, because people kind of forget that. He's not just auditioning to be the head coach of the New York Giants. He's auditioning to be an offensive coordinator somewhere else next year because he's probably going to have to go somewhere else next year. So, but yeah, I mean, other than that, there's not really a lot of great Giants storylines right now.
Jameis throwing up the numbers.
It's just Jameis.
Are you ready for this? I think we Mandela affected ourselves.
I don't know.
Mike Kafka never coached for the Buffalo Bills.
Did he really not? Okay.
Grad assistant at Northwestern. Then he was a coach for the Chiefs. He was the offensive quality control coach.
That's right. No, that's right. He's from that
He's from that tree.
Yeah, that's my bad. I don't know why I assumed he was a QB's coach.
No, I know why.
I know he wasn't the OC, but I kind of assumed he was the QB's coach
there.
first.
So you just assumed Dable.
That's kind of why I did that. But okay, but still, I mean, it's a similar-ish, offense. But yeah, no, that makes sense. So yeah, we did. Didn't
even play for Buffalo in his playing career either.
Well, no, that I knew he didn't play for Buffalo. Although, I mean, I only barely remember him with the Eagles, but I don't even know how many other places where he was off the practice squad.
Career NFL statistics: 11 for 16, 107 yards, no touchdowns, 2 picks.
There we go. But that does make sense. He was part of that because I think he was the QB's coach for the Chiefs for a minute.
Yeah, when they won
the offensive coordinator.
When they won the title in 2018, he was the quarterback's coach.
Yeah. So okay, that makes sense then.
So yeah, it's important for him just as much as it is with the Giants as it is without the Giants. So a pretty important couple of games here for Mike Kafka. You want to talk about the AL MVP, Aaron Judge? Cal Raleigh of the MVP. I'm just kidding. I messaged you.
Stop.
I messaged you after the results were released, and I said to you, I'm good with this. I was Team Cal Raleigh. I would have been one of the 13 that voted for Cal Raleigh in first place. But the way that it was split, 17-13, was, I think, fair and representative of how close of a decision it actually was. I know you probably don't agree with that. But
by the way, Chris, before I want to time out you for a second. Okay. I realized who I switched Kafka with in my head.
Okay. All right.
It was Ken Dorsey. That's the timeline where
Ken Dorsey was
the QB coach in Buffalo there. Sorry. So it was going to bother me the rest of the show if I didn't realize. I'm like, who am I thinking of that was under? And now that's who it was. Sorry. But yeah, Judge.
You may not think this. I do think there was an actual decision to make. I do think it was worthy to consider both of these guys.
Yeah.
And so the way it broke down, I'm okay. Even though I would have voted for Raleigh, I think Raleigh was the MVP in my mind. I'm okay with the way it broke down because that told me that it got these voters gave it the care it deserved and the thought it deserved.
And so I want to have a conversation about this because I feel like this AL MVP race down the stretch from both sides had some of the most ridiculous rhetoric I had ever seen on both sides of the equation, on the Judge side and on the Cal Raleigh side, and to kind of try to discredit the other. Both players had great seasons. Both players deserve to be considered for the MVP, but the right player won. And I don't just say that as a Yankees fan. I say that as somebody that looks at the total value of everything that encompasses each position. And that goes beyond just flat out WAR, which Judge did have. But this is not, I don't want this award to only solely be the AL or NL WAR leader. You know what I mean? I do think there is some nuance that comes with when you vote for an MVP or a Cy Young for that matter, that you can't just look at one statistic, even if it is a catch-all statistic that we like. What Cal Raleigh did this season was historic. He had an unbelievable season, and he is going to have one of the most exciting MVP2 seasons of all time. I would argue there's another really exciting MVP2 season that we saw last year in the AL that Judge spoiled in Bobby Witt Jr. That doesn't get talked about as much because the Royals aren't good. So we don't talk about that. Arguably, if you were going to start a franchise today and you had to account for age, I'm not sure there's any hitter in baseball you would pick over Bobby Witt Jr. if you had to account for age. There's an argument.
No, I'm just thinking. I'm
But,
not disagreeing.
And obviously, I'm not saying he's the best hitter. Judge still exists. Shohei Ohtani still exists. I get that. But if you were starting a franchise today, all things considered, given the position, given the age, taking contract out of the equation, because that's not fair when you start, doing that. Obviously, the contract would only help Bobby Witt in this case. But I think he would be the guy. I say that to say this: it's okay to have multiple players that have great seasons. What Ohtani is doing in the National League in terms of his unanimous MVPs is on a different stratosphere. And I looked last night, I saw a graphic that kind of showed recent MVPs and how many of them have been won. And right now, if you look at the number of MVPs in recent history, and you look at players 2, 3, and 4, Bonds is number 1, shocker, as he is in most stats. It's Ohtani, Judge, and Mike Trout, who I know, unfortunately, is probably never going to win another MVP. The way his career's ending is very sad, in a way, but still a Hall of Famer. But we are very blessed to see, in this same era, Ohtani, Judge, and Trout play at the levels that they're playing. And so I say that to say this: it's okay to have multiple players that were great. There were 3, I thought, truly exceptional seasons this year from hitters, and it was from Judge, Ohtani, and Cal Raleigh. Just unfortunate that there were 2 other guys that had it, and Cal Raleigh had to be behind somebody. But what Aaron Judge did this year was absolutely unbelievable. His 215 OPS plus is just incredible. He has played perfectly fine in the field before the elbow injury obviously caused some issues with his throwing, but really led the team on his back just as much as Cal Raleigh did. And at the end of the day, was just an unbelievably productive hitter in every scenario possible. And he was the rightful MVP in this case. But to your point overall from the very beginning, Chris, I thought the 17-13 split was fair. I'm also glad there was nobody else that got an MVP 1 vote. And then it's unfortunate that poor Jose Ramirez is going to probably go in the Hall of Fame without an MVP, because he's always kind of the bridesmaid in a lot of this. But I do think by the way, another guy putting together a Hall of Fame resume over there in Cleveland. But yeah, I thought this was right. We have to have a discussion in general, about how we rate. And this is not about the MVP talk in specifics. This is kind of even about the Gold Gloves and all of this, because I saw this is more of a Patrick Bailey conversation and a Cal Raleigh conversation. But we also have to decide how we feel about framing in terms of fielding value versus overall value. Because there are certain guys that frame well. I mean, nobody frames like Patrick Bailey. Like his numbers are just astonishing. But do we consider that a fielding statistic? Because when people talk about Gold Gloves and this, like, oh, how did Patrick Bailey win there? How does he not win the platinum glove and all this other stuff? It's like, well, how much of that do you feel like is traditional fielding versus just an element of catching? So there's some other nuances that go into all of this, and some of the nuances that carry over into Cal Raleigh, who's obviously benefits a lot from framing, and his numbers, especially his F-WAR, indicate that. But at the end of the day, this was the right choice. Aaron Judge deserved to be the 3-time MVP here. He had one of the most amazing seasons of all time, and I'm glad that we didn't see voter fatigue this year for him, for Ohtani, for Skeens, for Skubal. Like, there were guys that were just I appreciate the greatness, because there were times where I thought Mike Trout got, what's the phrase? don't want to say screwed. That's not fair to the guys that won, but where there was voter fatigue for Mike Trout at times in the prime of his career, not wanting him to be the MVP. It's okay that that Aaron Judge had a monster season before, and I don't think he should be hurt because, well, him being amazing isn't a surprise. That shouldn't take away from what he's doing right now. And his journey, and I've said it on this show before, I said it on the show that used to be on this channel, he is on a potential journey to be the greatest right-handed hitter in baseball history. And I think you should enjoy that run instead of trying to find ways to have, well, we need new guys to win these awards or new guys to get this. Like, it's the new car smell isn't always the best. If Cal Raleigh won, no, it wouldn't have been a travesty. If you go back through baseball history and go on Baseball Reference and look at some of these old MVP races, there's a lot of really, really bad snubs. And Judge would not have technically been a bad snub here, but he was the rightful winner, and I'm glad that he did. And I feel like the discourse, because it played out so vitriolically over the final 2 months of the year, that it was kind of muted, by the time we got to last night. But what do you think, Chris? You're on the other side of this. Not that you think that it was a bad vote, but you're on the other side of this equation in terms of who should have won.
Yeah, I mean, I want my MVPs to produce in the postseason and do well when the lights are the brightest. So that's. I was waiting.
Yeah. Go look at Judge's postseason this year.
I was waiting in the wings to.
I know you were, but one, it's a regular season award, and two, not the year for that.
No, of course not, Yeah, look, I don't think there was a wrong answer here. If you picked either of these guys, you were fine in your justification. I do appreciate, even though the person that I thought should have won it didn't win it, I do appreciate the conversation that it forced us all to have throughout the summer. I do think it made us all better fans for having the conversation and debating what's actually important, what actually is valuable, what stats we should look at. I do think it helped us in many ways. And yeah, I mean, Judge winning, I'm very anti the fatigue argument. I'm very anti the idea of, well, this guy's won it a bunch, he doesn't need to win it again. If the season dictates that he's the most valuable player, then they're the most valuable player. It should be separate. Each season should be its self-contained volume, right? Its own vacuum in which you evaluate these players. And unfortunately, that's not always the case. So I do think that is a good thing that came out of Judge winning this one, is that they didn't have that fatigue and they did evaluate it on its individual merits. But yeah, I do think the entire discourse was good for baseball. I do think it allowed baseball to really kind of take a look in the mirror of what matters, what doesn't matter, and have these conversations. And I think it made us all better. So, yeah, I would have voted for Cal Raleigh, but Aaron Judge would have been number 2 on my ballot. So I would have been one of the 13 people that had it the other way. And we all knew that this was how it was going to end up with these guys 1-2 in some order. Before we get out of here, Jamie, I want to talk about the number 1 wild card team, 1 point out of the 3rd spot in the Metropolitan.
It's weird. It's weird using the division's government name and just not calling it the Metro.
Hot take. Are the New York Islanders the best team in New York?
The best team in New York right now.
Okay, fine, right now playing the best team in New York. Better than the Knicks. This is a better story.
Fine, I'll give it to you. I'll give that to you. I love the way that they're playing right now.
Don't sleep on the Rangers, though, who also have 20 points. They've played one more game than the Islanders have. But the Islanders are playing big overtime win in Vegas last night.
I know the Rangers finally got that home win, but the vibes around that team has been very strange. You know what I mean? Of like where I feel like the journey for the Islanders to get to where they are right now feels a lot more exciting and energetic and enthusiastic than the journey for the Rangers to get where they are right now. But you know what? If they win a few more home games and they kind of break, you kind of push that brutal home start in the background. You look at what they've done on the road. Like, they're a month away from being like, okay, we can exercise those demons. But yeah, right now the Islanders are young, they're fun, and boy, they look like, we're getting closer to that hypothetical American Thanksgiving playoff cutoff line that we always talk about.
That's 2 weeks away.
Like 80% of the teams that are in a playoff spot at that point tend to make the playoffs. So
13 days away from that date. 13 days.
We're getting there.
And they're in the mix right now. It's great.
Damn, 13 days from Thanksgiving, huh?
13 days from Thanksgiving. Let's close with this because the Knicks are a story because Jalen Brunson has a grade 1 ankle sprain. And don't know how long this is going to take. He's had an injury to this ankle in the past. He missed 15 games with it last season with that sprained ankle. And you never want to mess with ankles. You never want to mess this early in the season with something like that, re-aggravating it. It does call into question that this has kind of been a recurring theme for Jalen Brunson. You start to get worried about his availability for this team in crunch time. But in general, I mean, the Knicks have been great this season. They've been really good. The Detroit Pistons are probably the story in the Eastern Conference, but the Knicks have set themselves up as the team from the group that everybody thought could win the East, with Indiana having a down year because of Tyrese Halliburton's injury. They've lived up to that billing so far, and this is a huge blow for that. Doesn't mean they don't have the talent to overcome it, right? You're going to look to Karl-Anthony Towns. You're going to look to Mikal Bridges. You're going to look to the talent that this team has to get through this. But this is a rough blow for the Knicks team. They got their first home loss of the year at MSG the other night to the Orlando Magic, and they're going to have to, in a year where they've got a brand new coach and they're trying to kind of put all these pieces together. It's been a good start, but this is really the first true bit of adversity that this group has faced this year.
Yeah. The NBA is really bad with timelines. A lot of times you always hear like, we'll be reevaluated in X number of days.
Well, and
weeks,
it's an
months,
ankle
years.
injury, right? So like these are always finicky. Like you can put a timeline on it,
but you don't know.
You just don't know.
And again, depending on, where these are in the NBA, it's typically low ankle sprains as compared to high ankle sprains, which you see a lot more at the NFL level. So, I mean, which tend to be a little bit less severe in terms of a timeline, but a lot more prone to re-aggravation.
And that's, so you can't afford that if you're the Knicks.
No.
You got to take this extremely cautiously.
Yeah, because again, at the end of the day, your expectations now are supremely elevated from where they were a year ago at this time. And obviously you're not doing anything without Brunson. So, kind of hold water, and we'll kind of check back in on this, but without knowing a timeline for this, it's just, and also it being November, it's just kind of tough to really put a lot into it other than to say, just don't rush him back, because like you said, Chris, this is a recurring issue at this point. And, you have to kind of see, I mean, ankle issues can derail seasons, can derail careers at times. So again, not going to freak out yet, but not really what you want, but we'll see what the Knicks are able to do without him. And again, there's no need whatsoever to rush him back. And obviously he's got the coach this year will play him a little bit more cautiously when he does get back on the court than the coach that was here before.
Yeah. You know what? A really great point. A really great point that last year,
right? I mean,
yeah, no, last year you're probably a little worried about him coming back too soon.
Coming back and then immediately getting 40 minutes and you're like 42 minutes and you're just like, oh, well, hopefully, yeah, like I think they'll be able to play. The entire organization will play it a little bit more cautiously this time around, but you hope this is one of one and not one of a couple to happen to him this year.
And that's why if it takes longer than whatever anybody's hypothetical timeline in their head, or if they search on WebMD for the timeline,
2 to 4 weeks or whatever they,
right? Like if they go longer than whatever that timeline is in your head, I'm okay with them erring on the side of caution. This isn't, at the end of the season right before a playoff series where, you know what, if you want to rush him back and maybe he's not 100%, but he's going to give it a go, you can understand that. It's not even Christmas. The NBA season hasn't actually officially started yet, right? I mean, it isn't until December 25th that people actually care about the NBA. So take your time, make sure that he's fully healthy because, Jamie, with the way this team's playing so far this year, the Eastern Conference is theirs. Like it is out there for them to go to an NBA Finals, to compete for a championship. The East is open enough, and they've played well enough here at the start of the year to where you can see that path. So don't ruin that because you rushed back Jalen Brunson, in December.
Yeah, you're 11 games into the season?
11,
7 or 4. So 11 games into the season. I mean, like you just gotta take your time, because I know the East right now outside of Brooklyn, Indiana, and Washington is really kind of jumbled up, but you're going to have some separation. You're fine. Like this is not a team that even if Brunson misses significant time early in the season, that's at risk to not be a playoff team. Your goal here is to put yourself in the best position to be hitting on all cylinders come playoff time, because there is no easy favorite in the East, to your point. I know Detroit's playing great basketball right now. But I don't think anybody thinks, if I asked you right now, would you put money on Detroit to win the conference?
I would not. No, I would not.
Okay. So like you got some time here. Get healthy, because if he's not healthy come playoff time, it's not going to matter because you're not going to do anything. You don't stand a chance. No. It's November. It's fine. And by the way, in a league of load management, in a league where a lot of guys, particularly in the Eastern Conference, sit a lot in the middle parts of the season, getting some of those games, I guess you could say you're going to get some of those out of the way early while he's getting healthy. So maybe you could play him a little bit more down the stretch.
And oh, by the way, it's not like the Knicks need to fold up shop and they're not talented enough to go win basketball games.
Yeah.
Like they can still win in his absence. Their season's not torpedoed because of this. That'll do it for us here on this edition of the NY Sports Index. You want to rate, review, subscribe to the podcast? We would love it if you would do that. Share the show with a fellow NY sports fan. We would appreciate that as well. You want to watch the show? 2 ways for you to do that. The NY Sports Index YouTube channel, or you can also catch the show over on our Spotify page. We're back on Monday breaking down the Giants and the Jameis Winston experience, and boy, is it going to be an experience. The latest in the land of hockey, and potentially, who knows, you feel like something may happen in baseball over the weekend. I don't know. I get the feeling. Edwin Diaz said it's 50-50 that he's coming back to the Mets. It's starting to feel a little bit like something could happen.
I guess it is November. So, I mean, look, it's more likely to happen next week than the week after as people start to go travel and family and Thanksgiving and whatnot. So maybe something happens, but we'll see.
If it does, we're here to break it all down for you on the NY Sports Index. Everybody have a good weekend. We'll talk to you on Monday.